Hello and welcome back to another video up on my channel. In today's video we are going to be discussing the best perk cards in all of Fallout 76. We're going to talk about every perk card in all the special tabs and which ones you should use in each one of your builds. But with all that being said guys, let's get right into the video. So first things first guys, I just wanted to let you know that there will be timestamps for each category. So if you want to go and look at the best perk cards for agility, you guys can just look down below and go to that exact timestamp. Another thing is these are going to be the best perk cards to use with most builds. Now some of these won't be good for, let's say, a heavy gun build, but will be good for an Elder's Mark build. It just depends, and I will go into detail about that as well, so don't worry about that. And then some of these cards go perfect together, and then some do not work together at all, and I will also talk about that. So I will go into depth about each perk card and what is super helpful with it. But with that said, let's start off by talking about strength. So first off, let's discuss strength. So strength is a good measurement of melee builds and just damage in general. Also, the more strength that you have, the more carry weight you will have. So that's always something to keep in mind while building your builds within the game. So for the first card that we are going to talk about is kind of ones that go really well with other ones inside of strength. So first we have bringing the big guns and bullet storm. Bringing the big guns will just double your bullet storm cap. And of course, bullet storm is just the more bullets that you fire, the more damage you will do. This is super nice if you just see in the bottom right, as I shoot, the more bullets I shoot, the more bullet storm I have. And then once I reload, it goes down. But another great one to have is locked and loaded, because it will only take from half of what you shoot. So as you can see, I'm shooting and I got up to 6. And now I reload and it goes back down to 3 instead of 0. So these 3 perk cards are amazing to have equipped together just for that sole purpose. These 3 perk cards are also super nice to have inside of the raids. As you can tell, the more bullets you fire, the more damage you will do. And so when you're fighting the snake or the guardian, it is super helpful to be doing a lot of damage the more bullets you shoot, because you don't need to reload as often and switch off to other targets. But I have bullet storm in almost all of my builds, whether it is the Elder's Mark build or a Gauss minigun or really anything. This build, or these perk cards, are amazing for weapons that have a high ammo amount. So you wouldn't use this for a hunting rifle that has about 5 bullets in its clip, but for a minigun or an Elder's Mark that have over 100 bullets, it is perfect for those kinds of guns. So then the next 2 that go super well together inside of strength is Easy Target and Scatter Shot. So first off, Easy Target does range damage to crippled targets. And so more times you cripple a target, the more damage you will do to them. This is very nice when you cripple the snake, or when you cripple anything in the world, it will just do an additional amount of damage. Then for Scatter Shot, it is damage dealt to a certain limb deals it to all. So that makes it so you can do more damage and cripple them easier. These 2 together just help an immense amount to help cripple your targets and take them out easier. Basically, these 2 help you do more damage, and more damage means that you can stay alive for longer. Also, alongside with that, all of that, you should know that you do not have to have all of these maxed out. So some may be level 1 or 2, but as long as you have a level 1, and maybe in the future once you get your legendary perk cards up, you can upgrade these. Just keep in mind that you can play how you want to play, but having these perk cards in helps an immense amount while being in battle. And then for the last one inside of Strength, I would say Traveling Pharmacy. This is going to make it so your chems and stim packs and everything is reduced. Now, I know there is a 3-star through Hikers mod which already does that, but with how strong Active has been, just by doing more, getting more AP from it, it has become a lot better, in my opinion, to be using active 3-star instead of through hikers. But I can't make a strength perk card tier list without adding Traveling Pharmacy because of just how good it is by negating so much weight inside of your stuff. I carry a lot of chems on me, around 50 stim packs, that with Traveling Pharmacy even weighs about 6 pounds, and it is a whole lot more if I didn't. So it is almost necessity to have this if you do not have the 3-star through hikers on. Now, with all that said, those are my biggest suggestions for everything inside of Strength category. Now, you can kind of pick and choose on how you like to play. Most of my perk cards go towards those, whether it's a Broadsider build, an Elder's Mark build, or a Gauss minigun build. I do use those a lot of the time. But now let's go on to the Perception category. So now let's talk about Perception. Now, what Perception does, it gives you more accuracy with your weapons and inside of VATS. So basically, the more Perception you have, the better VATS accuracy you will have within your guns. And that is always ideal when it comes to certain weapons that don't already have an amazing accuracy. So getting this up is another amazing thing you guys should try and do while trying to make your builds. So the first perk card in Perception that we will talk about is Awareness. Now what Awareness does is it gives more VATS accuracy while inside of VATS, of course. And why this is so strong is mainly because the more times we can fire our gun and hit our target, the more damage we will be doing. And the faster they will be doing. So we can take out enemies a lot faster if we have certain accuracies. This is great on certain guns like the Broadsider, which does not have very good VATS accuracy. So if you guys are rocking with certain weapons, you should definitely use this perk card like the Broadsider. So then for the next perk, we are going to talk about Concentrated Fire. Now, Concentrated Fire is super nice just because you don't have to have level 3. Now, level 3 will help your accuracy and damage, but the level 1 and level 2 are super nice as well. So if you guys are not as high of level, not have as much legendary perk cards, this is always an amazing option for you guys. But basically what Concentrated Fire does, it does 1% more damage and accuracy depending on what level it is. And again, damage is always nice and your accuracy is super nice because you don't want to be missing and wasting your AP. AP is such an important aspect inside this game, and that's why so many people have the active mod on for the AP that it gives. So then the next one in our Perception list is Deal Sealer. Now Deal Sealer is maybe the most important one to put in your builds because what Deal Sealer does, it does 10% damage for each impairment your target has. Now if you fight a queen, that queen has a bunch of impairments, so you're doing an additional like 5 or 50% damage to the queen. This is just such a perfect one to use while running around Appalachia and inside of the raids because of the percentage of damage you will do extra. It is so important that you guys run this. It is one of my favorite ones inside Perception, sorry. And because of that, I use it in every single build I have. I mean, it's just free extra damage, and who doesn't want just extra damage while running around in Appalachia and inside the raids? So then for our next one, we have Number Cruncher. Number Cruncher is super nice because it does additional damage per how much your gun takes for AP as you shoot in VATS. So basically what that means is the more VATS cost it takes to shoot, the more damage it will do. So something like the Broadsider is perfect because it is very expensive to shoot in VATS. But because of that, the more damage that will do. That is another reason why the Broadsider builds are so overpowered right now. But with this build, you can run around with really anything because no matter what, it still costs AP to fire your gun. And because of that, you are still going to get extra damage. So bottom line, you are getting extra damage while running this perk card. Yes, maybe some guns are better for it, like the Broadsider comparatively to the Elder's Mark, but still, like I said, it still costs AP to shoot your gun, so it's still extra damage that you guys are being able to obtain from it. So, and then finally, the last two kind of go together very well for big tanky enemies, and that is Tank Killer and Tormentor. Now, these are perfect for running inside the raids or fighting anything that has a lot of damage. Now, what Tank Killer does is it ignores your enemy's like armor that it is wearing. And because of that, again, you will be doing more damage because of it. Super nice and super helpful while running around. And then for Tormentor, it gives you an increased damage for crippled limb. So if you cripple their head, you will be doing more damage. And that goes very well with the strength perk that is easier to cripple with. So like I said guys earlier, a bunch of these perk cards go super well together for just boosting each other up and stuff like that. But with all that said, that is my strong suit inside of Perception. There could be others that I missed, but those are the ones that I for sure go with. But with that being said, let's move on and talk about Endurance. So then moving on to Endurance. So for Endurance, a lot of these perk cards are not going to be so much for damage, but to help us stay alive, and that is going to help us immensely. They are also going to be more focused on AP and our health. Endurance is mainly the focus of AP, health, and just overall defense. So like strength and perception, endurance is just going to help us stay alive over doing more damage. In my opinion, endurance is one of the most overlooked categories. Everybody thinks AP for agility and stuff like that, but when I think of AP, I think of endurance, and here are a couple perk cards and stuff for that reason. So first up on our endurance perk cards, we have Iron Stomach and Thirst Quencher. So what Iron Stomach does is it increases damage and energy resistance based on endurance while not diseased. So basically what this perk card does is it will help you stay alive and have a greater defense and energy resistance while running around inside and outside the raids. This is a super nice one to have just because it will help you stay alive. Not everything is about doing damage because sometimes you just need to have more resistances to things like bullets and energy weapons. But what Thirst Quencher does, it increases your AP based on your endurance while not diseased. So again, the more endurance we have will help us immensely because I have talked earlier about how important AP is while running around and vatsing inside of Fallout 76. Well, the more endurance we have, the more AP we will get off of that. Now these two cards I run with every single build as well. It doesn't matter if it is an Elder's Mark build, a Broadsider, a Gauss minigun build, that these two are insanely good that I make sure to run with every single build I have. So now the next one I will talk about is Ironclad, and I will talk about Life Giver. These both are super nice for also staying alive and having more resistances while running around inside and outside of the raids. So what Ironclad does, armor provides more percentage while wearing it, and it doubles if wearing matching sets. So if you guys are in a full Secret Service or Civil Engineer, it will double it as of that. And what Life Giver does, it gives you more health based on your endurance. And the more health that we have, the more damage we can take and the longer we can survive. These are almost needed perks while running around. I very much so think that endurance is one of the most overlooked categories, but it has such amazing perk cards inside of it. I always run over 10 endurance whenever I can because of how good these perk cards are. But speaking of other perk cards, Starch Jeans is a must if you are running mutations. Because if you are not running Starch Jeans and you take a rat away, well, boom, there goes some of your mutations. And you don't want to have to keep putting mutations back on and accidentally taking them off. So it is a must to have Starch Jeans, and that is why Starch Jeans is on this list. It is one that not many people think of, but is very, very helpful in the fact that you just don't have to lose your mutations every 2 seconds on accident. And then for our final perk card, I have Through Hikers. Now what Through Hikers does is it gives your food and water weight reduced. And that is super nice for the main reason that you can have active on. So this is basically Through Hikers 3-star legendary effect. But this one is a great one that pairs well with the traveling pharmacy, because this is what Through Hikers 3-star really is. But I like using active. Like I said earlier in the video, I run active, so I have to have these on or I will just always be overweight and not able to move anywhere. So this is almost a must for me as well, as somebody who doesn't use the Through Hikers legendary effect. But I know some people don't really want to have these taking up their slot, so I also understand that. But like I said, guys, I think endurance is the most overlooked section because maybe it doesn't give the best perks for doing damage, but it will help you stay alive so much while running around inside of Appalachia and inside the raids. But with that said, now let's go and talk about Charisma and what the best perk cards inside Charisma are. So basically what Charisma does is it is a determining of what kind of checks you can do within the game. So whether that is a talking check and quest or something else is super helpful with that. It also determines your prices for caps when buying from NPC vendors. Only NPC vendors, not player vendors. So when the mole miners come around and you have to buy their pails, Charisma is an amazing one to get up because of how cheap you can buy those pails for. But the first one that we will be talking about inside of Charisma is Inspirational. Now what Inspirational does is it gives you more XP based on your Charisma. Now this one is something that lower levels will want to use to level up faster inside of the game. Me, for instance, I do not rock this as often unless it is the first of the season or it's a double XP weekend, because I do not necessarily need the XP buff. I already am a decent level and I care more about the damage I deal. But if you guys are lower level inside of the game, I strongly suggest to use the inspirational perk card. It is super nice just to get the additional XP boost, because again, the more charisma you have, the more XP you have with that perk card. But the two perk cards that I do run with at all times is Strength in Numbers and Tenderizer. Those two are in every single one of my builds. No matter what is going on, I always make sure to fit those two perk cards inside of my builds. First off, let's talk about Strength in Numbers. What Strength in Numbers does is it gives me more it helps my mutations while I'm on a team. So right now you can see I'm not on a team, so my mutations are not as good as they could be. So I'm not jumping as high, I'm not getting as much food buff from my carnivore, I'm not getting certain stuff like that. So make sure if you rock this perk card to always be in a team whenever you get into the game, because it will help your mutations a much more. And then for Tenderizer, what Tenderizer does is each consecutive hit on your target, the enemy takes more damage. Meaning that if you're fighting the snake and you keep hitting the snake over and over and over again, each shot that you hit with the snake will do just more damage to it. And that's always so important and helpful to do while running raids, or really anything that has a lot of health inside Appalachia or inside the raids. But like I said earlier, guys, there isn't that much that can go into Charisma that is super useful. There are some useful perk cards, but I just find that it is more helpful to put those points into other things like luck, or really any of the other special points. But I always make sure to at least run one or most of the three that I just said. But with that said, let's get on to intelligence and talk about the different intelligence stuff that I suggest you guys using every single time. So now let's talk about intelligence and what the best intelligence perk cards to use while running around Appalachia is. Let me explain what intelligence does. Intelligence is based on how much damage you can do with energy weapons if you run a certain perk card, which I will get into in a second. And it also does determine how much XP you get. So the more intelligence you guys have, the more XP you will get by completing quests, by killing enemies, by completing sections of the raid, and everything that gives you XP like that. But the first two perk cards that I suggest running with, if you guys can, is Field Surgeon and First Aid. So first off, what Field Surgeon does is Stimpaks and Radaway heal for 60% more, which is just super nice in case you need to have a fast heal when in middle of a fight. So what First Aid does is it gives more HP based on your intelligence. So basically the more HP that you, or the more intelligence you have, the more the heal will do. So it basically makes Stimpaks better based on your intelligence, which is super nice in certain situations when you need a fast and a lot of heals. For example, when you were fighting the snake, he can shoot you with his venom, and that can do quite a bit of damage if you are not prepared for it. So the next one that I strongly suggest using inside of intelligence is Good with Salt. What Good with Salt does is it gives you more spoilage time on your food. So basically it takes longer for your food to spoil by 90%, and that is so nice when you have just a bunch of food that you took a while to craft up and you want to take advantage of its usefulness, but you don't want to eat it right away. This is something that I use every single time I am playing the game or making a build, just because of how many different food buffs I use while running around Appalachia and inside the raids especially. It is basically a mandatory for me, and when I say every single build has it, I mean every single build has it. The last one that I suggest every single person use is Science Perk card. Now, Science Perk card is super good if you are using a energy weapon. Now, if you're not using an energy weapon, don't use this perk card because it does nothing for you. But this is just for energy weapons. So it's super nice to have if you're unyielding or something that gives you a crap ton of intelligence, and you have, let's say, a Tesla rifle or Tesla cannon, you will just do a stupid amount of damage while running around inside of the raids or Appalachia. The Science Perk card is an absolute must if you are running with any energy weapon or anything like that, because why would you not have just additional more damage for free? It's not an expensive perk card, and it's just already, you should take it. But with all that said, that is my suggestions on the best perk cards inside of intelligence. Now, I know that a lot of people like to try to max out their intelligence because of how much XP you get as well. And I do that at times too, especially if I am using a build that is like a Tesla cannon. I have that, or if it is double XP weekend or the start of the season. But it is super important that you guys build it your way. If you guys are lower level and you want more XP, go ahead, add more intelligence. I know there isn't as much comparatively to, let's say, endurance, but still, play it how you guys want. But let's move on to the agility segment of this now. So now let's discuss what agility does. Agility is super useful in the fact it determines how much action points you have and your regen like that. So action points are super useful within inside the game because it does a bunch of different stuff. Whether it's running, jumping, vatsing, and everything like that, it is super useful to have as many action points as you can on a certain build or stuff like that. So I always have a bunch of different things that I like to use inside of agility. So one of the first things I like to use inside agility is adrenaline. Now what adrenaline does is it gives you stacks. As you can see in the bottom right, as I kill enemies or take enemies out, I get additional damage increase and stuff like that. The higher the skull is, but 10's the max, the more damage I will do with adrenaline on. It is super useful to do a bunch of more damage, whether you're inside or outside the raids. It also helps an immense amount while taking on loads of enemies. So then the next perk card I will talk about is Enforcer. Now Enforcer is so nice because it means your small guns have a better chance to stagger and 25% more limb damage. So this is an amazing perk card to use while using like an Elder's Mark or stuff like that because of how much increased damage it will give. And this works very well with certain other perk cards that are all about how much damage you can do against limbs and other things like that. So if you guys are rocking a Elder's Mark build or any small gun build like this, I strongly suggest to use Enforcer. Every single small guns stuff I use has Enforcer on it, just for how insanely good it is to just do that additional crippling and stagger chance. You put these together with other perk cards that do more damage when an enemy is crippled or things like that, and you will see your damage numbers shoot up so much. It is incredible how much this can actually do. So then the next two perk cards are actually a couple to put together, but there are master and experts and normal. So I'm just going to lump them all in together. And those perk cards are Gorilla, Expert, Normal, and Master. And we have Gunslinger, Expert, and Normal, and Master. So these are amazing ones determining on what kind of builds you have and how you want to use them. But these are super good perk cards to always try to include on your builds because it will just help you do more damage per onslaught and other things like that. So first off, for Gorilla, it will help you do more damage to closer enemies, and that's always ideal because in case you have like Feral Ghouls or Scorched in this example, these guys do get up close to you and you do not shoot from range to them. Also, like the Guardian inside of the raids is a close-up enemy as well, guys. But then for Gunslinger, your weapons do more damage to the weak spot. So like a weak spot for many enemies is the head, and you already do an additional amount of damage to enemies' heads. Well, now you'll just do more damage to their head because you have this perk card on, and it will help you do more damage to the weak spot. So I suggest always having these cards in your builds if you could fit them in. They are super useful in Appalachia and inside the raids. Highly, highly recommend these perk cards, guys. But with that said, it is very important to have a decent amount into agility because, as I said earlier, agility is determining on how much AP you have and stuff like that. It is super useful, and you guys should definitely take advantage of these perk cards inside of the game. I love having a lot of agility and being able to VAT and run as much as I can. But let's get into our last segment, which is the luck perk cards. So let's get right into that. So now, last but not least, let's talk about the luck category and what luck even does. So what luck does is it helps your luck with inside the game, whether that is you getting a perfectly preserved pie or things like that. It also helps with how much you can crit. So the more luck you have, the more crit you can do. So if you guys can get up to 40 luck on your character, that is perfect for critting almost every other chance you can get with the right setup. But talking about crits, we have two perk cards which helps immensely with how much you guys can crit. And those two perk cards are Crit Savvy and Better Criticals. So these two perk cards together actually go super well together. You should always have these two perk cards together when running any kind of build because of how much crits do and how effective critting is inside of Fallout 76. But Crit Savvy makes it so your crit bar only gets consumed 55% every time you do a crit instead of 100. And what Better Criticals does is it makes it so your crits do more damage. And that is so incredibly important for just doing more damage. These two perk cards is perfect because you will be doing more damage and more crits together. That is just a crazy and stupid amount of damage you guys will be doing with both of these perk cards on. It is so important that you guys use these with every build that you can. But for our next perk card that we will be talking about inside of Luck, it is Grim Reaper's Spirit. This perk card is super nice while killing any enemies because it gives any kill inside VATS restores action points based on your luck. So it's already super important to have a decent amount of luck inside of Fallout. And with how good action points are and VATS and everything put together, it is just so nice to have that perk card on so that you will never really run out of VATS or AP stuff that helps you do increased damage. Now maybe it's not perfect for the Snake or the Guardian fight because that is just a single enemy, but running around Appalachia and taking out a bunch of enemies at certain events can super help with this one. Along with the mole miner part inside the raids as well, guys. If you're the one defending, I strongly suggest having this perk card on because it will help you just constantly do VATS, which means you will constantly do a crap ton of damage. But for our last perk card that we will talk about, it is Class Freak. Now, Class Freak is also another one that you guys should all use with every single one of your build. builds because of how dang good it is and helping your mutations not get the bad effects. It takes the bad effects of your mutations down by 75%, and that is just so good while running around Appalachia and everything like that. This perk card just basically makes it so instead of a certain amount of things hurting you a bunch, it doesn't hurt as much. So for example, Marsupial normally takes off a bunch of intelligence, but with Class Freak on, you only lose 1 intelligence, which is so worth it comparatively if you guys did not run this perk card. It also helps with all your mutations as well, so this is an absolute guaranteed one that you should have in every single one of your builds. It should be the almost #1 thing that you put on alongside starch genes for your mutations. But with all that said, guys, this is where I'm going to end the video. I appreciate you guys checking out this video today, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time and research on this one. But alongside of that, if you guys think I may have missed a perk card that you guys personally think is super good or something like that, please let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions on everything. But also, guys, if you are interested in joining the Discord where I do leader giveaways for the YouTube videos and for everything I do, it is linked down in the description as well. So you guys can always check out that and learn how to win your own leaders. But with all that being said, guys, I just appreciate all the support you guys have been giving to me on these videos recently. It does mean so much. And yeah, but I will catch you guys in the next video. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and peace out, everybody.